Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Shue. I work with Movement Mortgage. I've been in the industry a long time. I actually started in it right out of college and then left for a few years, worked in startups and things like that, and then came back to it about 6 years ago. So I am one of the top producers at Movement Mortgage. I love what I do because I really love to be able to kind of figure out everybody's puzzle and see how we can help them get their financing to buy, whether it's their first time home or an investment property or a second home or whatever it might be. I just really love what I do, and I love working with Shannon. So I have my own single family house that we're actually going to be selling, buying a new house. We actually just closed today, so I'm just in the same boat with everybody else, buying a house and selling a house and all that good stuff. And if you can see all the gray hair that's growing out of my head dealing with all of that over the last few weeks. And I love my two little girls, 7, they are 6 and 9. They keep me super busy as well. And my vision for the world is positivity and gratitude. I always am seeing the silver lining. And I think a lot of people, friends and family who you speak to right now might say, oh my God, this is the worst time to buy. Why would you buy a house right now? And guess what? I think it's an incredible time to buy right now. And I always can see the positivity and that's just sort of who I am. So should we get started?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So do you want to go over this, Sam?
Sure thing. So today we're going to talk about what's the latest in housing news and really like what are you hearing and what's for real, because Shannon and I keep our fingers very closely on the pulse of the Los Angeles market, and you hear stuff just like news about COVID. You know, you may hear something from one person and something from a different source and be like, wait, what? They both say 2 different things. So we want to try to really get you up to speed of what's really happening here. And we'll talk about some opportunities in real estate and then sort of like, where do you begin? What do you do if you are interested in moving forward? So before we start, Shannon, what's the next slide? We want to go around the room for you.
Yes, if you guys don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself. First thing is your name, what you do for a living, and what you want to learn today. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first since I'm alphabetically first.
Okie dokie, Aaron.
My name's Aaron Glasser. I'm 37 years old. My wife and I own a solar and roofing company. We're in the process of expanding into 2 more states, Colorado and Texas. And I want to learn how to take the money that I'm going to make and really protect it, set up living trusts, build a real estate empire with passive income, which is taxed at a lower rate than active income, and just really create a situation where I can build not just a nest egg for my retirement, but also have something to leave as a legacy for my children.
Awesome.
Aaron, let's talk after this call because I am in the need of a roofer solar person.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Next, Faya, would you like to go?
Yes. My name is Faya Lang. I'm 42 years old. I am currently unemployed due to COVID, looking at possibilities, which I spoke with Aaron about the other day. And I'm here.
We're hiring too. So if you're interested in mortgage, you let us know.
Okay. Let's see. I'm here because even though I'm not in a position to buy, at some point I would like to be. So I figure I should start now in learning what that looks like.
Awesome. Yeah, Faya. Edward.
Edward Hahn. I work at Sony Pictures, 44 years old, I think. And I have 3 kids, 4, 2.5, and 3 weeks old today. Okay. So and that's why I can't remember how old I am or anything else right now. So, I recently bought a home in Culver City about 1.5 years ago, which I feel fortunate about. With we have outdoor space, etc. I still own my previous townhouse in Marina Del Rey, which has been rented out. But similar to Aaron, looking to see what I could do with my income, expand it, and really I'm if I want my kids to live in LA when they are older, seeing what's happening to the real estate market, I'm realizing I'm going to have to help them survive the pricing in LA 20 years from now. So I'd like to set them up in some way by making some smart decisions now. So yeah, so looking at residential income or residential development opportunities.
Great. All right, Edward, well, welcome. And we have someone joining, someone joining from the 951 number. Would you like to introduce yourself? I know you don't have a camera since you're on a phone.
I think I can introduce him because I think he's my brother-in-law.
Okay. 951-824-05.
Let me confirm. I don't know anyone's actual phone number. Yep, that's him. Okay.
Okay.
Hi,
brother-in-law.
So his name is Thomas. He's 25 years old and runs a small business, but doesn't occupy his time entirely. So he and I have been thinking about this, and we're working together on this. So he's from Riverside, and I'm married to his older sister. So. Got
it. Okay, fantastic. Glad that you even got your brother-in-law to join. It's gonna be highly participatory, so at the end you're gonna see lots of great questions. Let's get started. So what about real estate market news? Because all of you are consuming news just like most people in the United States, because we have more time at home. We're looking at our computers more, we're looking at the television more. And so I just I clipped some excerpts from some different news sources. Mostly that I think we're getting very confusing messages. So, excuse me, sorry, very sensitive mouse. There's one that's here are 5 reasons why the pandemic hasn't crashed the US housing market. And I would agree that the market is not crashing right now. And I don't foresee a crash this year. Where does the US housing market go from here? 5 experts share predictions for the rest of 2020. Housing market defies expectations and economic turmoil. I agree with that. Again, we are thinking like, what are we standing on? How can we have these home prices continue to go up despite unemployment going up and despite the fact that many companies are bleeding? Anybody in the travel industry, many people in the restaurant industry, Hollywood industry. I mean, there's so many large industries that are completely shut down right now. Then there's partial shutdowns, and we're not going to talk about commercial real estate today at all, but commercial real estate is hurting, and they will hurt more because many retailers and retail spaces cannot pay. Industrial spaces can, and I think many people believe that getting into apartments and multi-units is also an opportunity. It's just that many are worried that their tenants can't pay. U.S. existing home sales rose 20.7% in June. Sam and I will talk a little bit about that because we do see an uptick in sales, and we'll talk about why.
What about HUD properties, Shannon? Things where your rent money is guaranteed by the government.
Yeah, so once you get into HUD or Section 8, Section 8 is not my favorite kind of housing. It's mostly because they're usually in areas where I like to invest in B- neighborhoods on a scale of A, B, C, D, F. Most Section 8 I think are D+ to C markets, and I want to get out of that. And I want to actually be able to vet my tenants a little more. It is a strategy. There's nothing wrong with Section 8. It's guaranteed money. It's just a lot of times I want to be in a little bit, just ever so slightly better neighborhoods. It's definitely slight.
So you wouldn't be opposed to, Section 8 or HUD housing, for example, in some place like Irvine or, other parts of Orange County?
Irvine, I don't even know how much Section 8 they have, but yes, it's a very expensive place. It's like Santa Monica and Section 8.
Yeah.
There's almost no Section 8 in Santa Monica because no tenant can find a landlord that will take their voucher. Same thing in Irvine. Can Irvine find a landlord that will take their HUD or their Section 8 voucher? It's a choice that the landlord makes to take your voucher.
Right.
Yeah, so you have to look more like North Long Beach, Lawndale, Hawthorne. These are like very C markets. In like Santa Ana, like the rougher parts of Santa Ana.
Yeah, Westminster, Garden Grove, stuff like that.
Yeah, Garden Grove, where somewhere where the landlord will take your voucher. Okay, so let's look at some of the opportunities. Sam, do you want to go through some of the opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna admit Zenona. Okay, so believe it or not, purchases are up 20% year over year. I'm sure most people, the other news that you're reading is saying that, oh no, doom and gloom for everything, and it's not. Lots of people are buying right now. Shannon and I, you know, at the beginning of this pandemic, we're like, okay, so what's going to happen now? It's awfully quiet. For me, refinances have been a huge portion of my business through COVID. And then purchases started to tick up and up and up and up. And it's now putting a lot of pressure on the mortgage industry because we're so behind, because there's just so many applications and so much interest to buy. That being said, people who do have now more time at home, they're not doing their hour commute each way every day, have more time. So to really hone in on your goals of buying a house or buying that investment property for your kids, that kind of thing, you have the time to look. And so that's a great opportunity to have that time in your life to be able to really achieve those dreams. And again, interest rates are so low. I can't even tell you. We'll get more into the nitty gritty on that, but that's a huge driver for a lot of my clients who are buying right now. I see a lot of people buying second homes as just like a place to get out of LA. Shannon and I have a client who just closed last week up in Big Bear, a cute little like $250,000 place up there where they could just be outside and have their own place to call home, and eventually they'll Airbnb it. But right now they literally sent me a picture of them leaping outside in the woods. They were so excited. So lots of opportunities for that. I think a lot of people too, with this whole work from home, I'm not sure with like some of the, like Edward, your company, if Sony said you could work from home forever, did they say anything like that yet? Or are you expected to?
No, that's unlikely for us, but we're going to work from home for the rest of the calendar year.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. My husband works for Amazon. They said the same thing up until January. They're going to evaluate, but for now work from home. And I think with that, with people working from home, they're saying, okay, it's time for me to get more space. Or maybe if I am able to work from home indefinitely, like those people who work at Twitter and Slack and all those technology companies, they're now going to be looking in areas that are maybe a little bit more affordable than in the city centers they had to be in before. So that's my opportunities. Anybody want to add any questions right now?
Yeah, are there higher down payment requirements for a second home?
I have that at the end, but the loan size max, depending on the county, okay, so for LA County, the single family loan limit is $765, and you'd have to put 10% down for a second home. If you were looking in like a Big Bear area or a low cost county, the maximum loan size is usually about $510 with 10% down.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to say a couple things about the opportunity slide, because the next slide is our challenges in the current market. And this increased downtime and especially anyone in the tech sector being able to stay at home, work from home, and potentially not come back to an office. I think a lot of those decisions are going to be made at the end of the year, the beginning of 2021. What I'm noticing is because there's more downtime, there is also this push to need more space at home, because your home office before was nice when you had to do it maybe once a week or, you know, a couple times a month. But now people are 24/7 in that home office. And if you have two working people at home with or without their kids, with their kids is obviously more chaotic, but even without their kids, they're realizing they don't have enough space. So what I'm noticing is there's a little bit of an exodus to the suburbs right now. Like people are looking, they don't want to be in the city, like in city of LA proper. They're wanting to move a little farther out, about 45 minutes, still in the county. But like, I need more yard. I need another bedroom because we have it's too loud when both of us are on the phone. I've heard that. When both of us are on the phone, we can't hear each other. When we're both in meetings, we can't hear each other. So just food for thought on that. Okay, challenges.
And some of these challenges are also opportunities. So we'll have to talk through it.
Yeah, we'll talk through it a little bit. We had gone back and forth to put what slide. Challenges, I think that was a lot of pent-up inventory from March, April, May, because March is when the stay-at-home was announced. So June, July, and August going forward right now, which is where we're in the middle of, we're seeing a lot of inventory come on because those 3 months before, they were waiting. I had 2 of my own sellers say they would wait. They said, well, I want to wait and see. And then finally, at the end of May and the beginning of June, they put their properties on the market. One sold and another one is about to close in about a week and a half. For those 2 people that waited through those 3 months, as an example. But we're seeing it across the board and across the country. That means that June, July, August numbers are going to show a pop of like 20% increase in sales because we just came from 3 months of very little sales. So we should be able to make up for those 3 months. And I think the months we're in, June, July, and August, are going to be makeup months. They're going to make up for that quarter that we got hit so hard and we didn't have a lot of inventory to sell. Then potentially I see a potentially in the second, we're going to see a second drop in the market. So we saw a drop in the market as soon as COVID was announced as a stay-at-home in California. That was March 11th. Then we just saw a lot of people just wait, didn't know what to do. Interest rates, the stock market crashed. The interest rates and lending was all over the place. They didn't know if they could lend to you. So it was a lot of wait and see for even people that wanted to pull a trigger. If you didn't want to pull a trigger, you needed to wait and see yourself, then you just waited and saw what happened. I think that the COVID cases in California, if they continue to rise, or we have, quote, there's a prediction that we may have a second like big hit in terms of another pop-up of cases, that's gonna put us back down on a shutdown even more restricted than we are at this very minute, which is supposedly, you know, a lighter shutdown than we were previously. There's the uncertainty around the election, and that puts markets and it puts a lot of the global market at some level of unease, and a lot of global markets feel like the United States is not handling COVID very well. So they are very cautious about our economy because their economies are tied to ours. And then short sales. I do think that we will see a few more short sales. Everyone's saying, well, with the forbearance and the coming up due between now and potentially the beginning of September, those homes are, quote, going to go on the market as short sales or foreclosures. I don't see enough foreclosures in the pipeline of Los Angeles, and key is Los Angeles, because if we're looking at like the suburbs of St. Louis, it's a really different story. And so your national news is going to cover national averages. And yes, the average across the board is that there is an increase in those things that are coming up in the pipeline. I don't see that happening in this market.
I think also it has to do with the amount of like blue collar workers in other parts of the country than we have here in Los Angeles. So a lot of we were talking before, a lot of the people who could not buy a house before couldn't qualify because maybe they were a restaurant server or, you know, didn't have maybe more than $50,000 of income per year. Still, either they don't have a job right now here in LA or still making that amount. They couldn't have qualified even pre-COVID. So a lot of the people who I see buying right now and getting pre-approved are like, you know, people on the front lines, a lot of nurses and doctors, a lot of let's see who else is getting approved, like people who are W-2 to work for the city, the county government, first responders like police.
Yes.
If you have a job and you are in a business that is considered one of the you know, required workers right now, you're probably at your all-time high. It's like the people who don't have a job either have like no work or been laid off, or the people that are working are beyond bananas busy. So it's this very strange time Roofers, I heard, are super busy right now because everybody at home is doing their at-home projects. So you might be having a really great year, Erin, I hope. Other people who are, maybe hairstylists are having a trouble, obviously, because they haven't been able to open, or gym owners. So the people who own, the self-employed people who own businesses likely could have qualified in the past pre-COVID, but now, and we'll talk in a minute about lending changes, but this year hasn't been a great year for a lot of self-employed people. Hasn't been a great year for people in entertainment because, maybe they weren't getting jobs during the long shutdown. Now maybe starting to come up a little bit, but not so much yet for the people who are, the cameramen and the grips and those types of people have been out of work. That being said, there's a lot of equity in property right now. So in the last crash in 2010, that was a housing crisis, right? The whole reason for the recession was because of housing and because lending was not being evaluated or really regulated by the government. So if you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. I was doing loans for people called a CISA, stated income, stated asset, or a NINA, which was a no income, no asset. So long as you had a high credit score, I didn't have to see any of your income, any of your assets. You wouldn't have to have a job. And then obviously that really went south. 100% financing then. They don't have that anymore. And so what's happened that's changed, and what a lot of people thought, oh, pre-COVID, that the next recession would be related to housing. It's almost the opposite. Housing is kind of propping up the economy a little bit. And I think that the equity in the home, so if you bought a home in 2010, the amount of equity and appreciation you've had over these last 10 years is probably, you probably made 1.5% on that, 150% on that property. You probably made quite a bit of money already. And that means there's a lot of equity in these homes. And because lending has changed so much, where you have to prove your income, your assets, all of that with tax returns, there's no stated loans anymore. That means that we're in a different place now. So I don't see, that's a long story to say, like, I don't really see foreclosures happening tomorrow. I think let's maybe fast forward 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, maybe. But again, those will probably be picked up by all cash buyers and investors who have the money to be able to go ahead and start developing maybe those properties. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, no, I agree. I just don't see a lot of foreclosures right now. I also believe that the banks, so if you took forbearance, which means you were going to take 3 months off from your mortgage, you had a little bit of a financial hardship, you get back on track, you put those payments to the rear, which means you add 3 more months to the end of your loan. And then you're somewhat back on track. You're still financially a little thin. You can stay in your home. Yeah. And so then we don't have, you're not necessarily going to come to market. Or if you think you're too thin to pay your mortgage, the banks are starting to do loan modifications with you. The bank wants to keep you in that house if they think for the most part you can pay, even if you're running a little thin on money. The bank does not want to foreclose on you immediately. It is too costly to foreclose. They would rather just loan modify you, see if they can extend the term a little, lower the payments a little, take advantage of the lower interest rates, charge you a little for the loan modification, and then call it done.
And Shannon, I thought you had a good point when this all started and you and I were like spitballing, like, what's happening? What are we going to do? And I said, oh, I bet there'll be a lot of sales. Maybe a lot of people are going to just say, like, forget LA and put their house up on the market. And you had a really good point, which made me stop and think a minute. You said, I bet people who don't have their jobs are going to try to stay as long as they can with their roof over their head. So I think that inventory is going to continue to remain low. So long as that equity's in there and the lenders are doing these loan mods, I don't think you're going to still see a huge increase in inventory. I know Aaron has a question. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Just a little bit of background. I've worked in the mortgage industry. I used to run AmeriQuest Mortgages subprime back before anybody even knew what the heck subprime was. I also have a background in financial services. So I've owned some rental properties before. My grandmother was a real estate mogul in Orange County in the 1950s as a woman, which was like crazy. So I love real estate. My questions are a couple of fold. One, because I'm self-employed, and as every self-employed person knows, our goal is to pay as little to Uncle Sam as possible. Often we're structuring our tax returns even if we're making 6 figures, to look like we're making 5 figures, so that our self-employment tax is low, and you know our obligation to the state of California is as low as possible on the corporate side, which makes it challenging to qualify for anything other than like an FHA basic loan. That's one part of, you know, how do we get qualified for these. The other thing is asking if there would be an interest in developing a REIT style investment group between us and some other people to pool resources, and with those cash resources then be able to qualify for financing more easily to purchase multiple properties that we could then share the rental returns and share the risk associated with things like maintenance and vacancies and, you know, other sort of issues.
What is your question, Erin?
So, well, I think self-employed people, yes, do have to show to Uncle Sam. So it does make it quite difficult. The jumbo loans, so loans for a single family over 765,000 are trickier than loans under 765,000. You don't necessarily have to go with an FHA loan, but there's a loan program where if you've been self-employed for 5 years, you can do just 1 year of tax returns. So, which is sometimes helpful. I mean, I know you probably just filed your returns because they were due last week, but maybe for next year, sometimes people will say, you know what, for 1 year, I won't file as much of expenses and write-offs just so that I can get that loan. But if you're looking for a loan over 765, they are going to require 2 years of return. So that would require an average of maybe 2 years of showing more income. For the REIT stuff, you're going to need to talk to like a commercial lender for that kind of thing. Residential mortgage doesn't really handle that. Maybe some specialty banks, but you're going to be looking at much higher interest rates and much more down.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm aware of the, I don't know what you want to call them, I guess bridge loans, for lack of a better word, you know, where you can get a 6 or a 7 year loan at a 9 to 13% interest rate, and, you know, then have a balloon payment essentially that you're just going to base on paying off based on the equity that you develop in the property during the appreciation period, and then convert it to a conventional loan once you can qualify for said loan. I guess, Shannon, my question is whether or not you guys could facilitate other people that would be interested in pooling resources in order to develop a pool of money, because of the large capital expenditure required specifically in the Orange County and LA markets. You know, these aren't FHA qualifying loans.
I'll tell you, it's called syndicating. When you syndicate a fund and then you pool money together, whether it's a private pool or it's sort of a more advertised pool. An advertised pool, you have to be SEC certified. If it's private, people that you know, you don't have to do that for syndication. I don't have any interest in syndication, mainly because I'd rather just control the deal. And bridge loans, to me, I think it's just not worth it to me. When the interest rate is this low, I want to take advantage of really low interest rates. And there isn't such screaming amazing deals out there that I have to go run and try to get $500,000 from 2 friends of mine so we have $1.5 million to redevelop a lot. I don't want to do that. I want to take advantage of what's easy, what's right out of the box, going to get me some money and cash flow it right away. I don't want to take these long throws and these long risks and really do risk analysis on what's even possible for the land in the next 2 years, assuming we get all the permits. So for me, Erin, it's not my wheelhouse. Like, I certainly understand the moving parts of it, but it's not something I think is there's just too many people with deep pockets in this city. They have enough cash, they can control the deal themselves. And so I don't think there's enough value add to come with cash. In fact, cash to me is cheap right now. I think the better play is skill, and then being able to get the property under contract and break ground on it right away for development. Because time is of the essence for any development project. And so to me, developers make all their money because they know how to cut time, not because they can find the deal. There's lots of deals right now. So
how do we, I mean, I guess I revert back to my prior question regarding being able to get approved for funding. I mean, like, for example, you know, my wife has a 750, 760 credit score. It'll probably be about 800 here shortly. But in terms of being able to prove income, that's where we run into,
Yeah.
you know, being
Can
stuck.
we, Aaron, can we take that part offline just so I can get through the rest of the presentation? Because it's more specific to your case, and then
Right.
it would be more beneficial one-on-one.
Okay.
Okay. So Sam and I talked about this. We actually were going to take these slides out, and then she's like, no, I think we should keep them in. It's a very interesting look. What I do once in a while, Sam and I do a sort of an analysis of what's going on in five neighborhoods I often sell in: Mar Vista, Mid-City, Leimert Park, Jefferson Park, and Inglewood. And we did this presentation in June, which was just last month, and we thought, like, we're going to dump the slides. We're going to put new slides in about how the market looks. But the reason we kept it in is for this reason. We also gave the presentation 7 months ago. Same demographic areas. The average single home price in Mar Vista between May of last year and May of this year, just under 1.6 million. Mid-City just under 900. Leimert Park 965,000. Jefferson Park 788. And Inglewood, North Inglewood, which is the most desirable section of Inglewood, is 690. Right? And then you can see the average sizes of the home, the average lot sizes, and the number of homes sold in that time period. In 1 year time period, these are just single families, so it doesn't include condos or duplexes or multi-units or commercial. And you can see that Mar Vista, Mid-City, this is a lot of turnover. And you want to see a lot of turnover because then you know that there's inventory that's moving. Then as you get farther down into Leimert Park and Jefferson Park, we're just seeing kind of like, decent turnover. You're seeing about 10 houses a month sell. In Inglewood, it's a very small section. I actually sectioned a smaller section of 90302. It was very low. And because Inglewood is so low, it also meant that there weren't a lot of home sales, so the prices are small, lower. The homes themselves are smaller. This is 1,200 square feet, whereas Mar Vista homes are above 2,000 square feet. And the reason I show you that is because I want you to see that the turnover is happening at a pretty decent clip. And then if you look at when I did the presentation prior, like the prices have gone up quite a bit. This is 1462. It was just under 1.46 million. It was just under 1.6 million now. So it tells you that the prices are still going up. And I have always said I fear affordability in our city is going to always be a ceiling. But we are a very wealthy city, and we just don't seem to feel like a ceiling means much to us. If you make good money, you continue to make good money, and you continue to buy real estate at all price points, from $650 all the way up to 1.6 million. We are seeing a slowing though. And so the slowing I see is starting to happen at the 1.5 million and above. You're starting to see a little bit more of a buyer's market. The buyers get to dictate the terms. The buyers get to get what they want. They know that there are not very many buyers at that price point. So I share this with you because also you can see there were more homes that were being sold at the same time period last year. So again, just taking note that the inventory has slowed from the same time period when we did this presentation in, I think we did it in October, November.
I just think it's so wild because everybody thinks home prices are going down and they're waiting for that deal, right? And this actually shows you just the opposite, that home prices are up, also just because it's just the regular economics, right, of supply and demand. So
Exactly.
Shannon, I think you recently had a sale. You had 23 offers on a property for a house that you had listed recently, right? Or 20, or one of your clients was one of the 20 or something. It's like there's still like that, and this was this way a year ago, and it's still that way. So there's still only one buyer out of those 23 making offers on a property. I think if the properties are listed at a good price, right, that are like a fair price for the market, those are going to have lots and lots of buyers, especially if it's turnkey, so that people can get in and start, you know, their life in the new house because they're all working from home anyway. So there isn't a lot of time to like redo a house right now. And the workers to redo houses right now are slim to find as well. So, if the houses are overpriced, those are the ones that you're seeing on Redfin and Zillow that are sitting because they're overpriced or there's something like severely wrong with the house. But it's sitting because it's probably just not priced well.
And I mean, I just want to speak to that. I mean, I live in Hemet, which is definitely not generally considered to be the most desirable area anymore. But we bought our home in August of 16 for $300,000, and the last offer that I got from some, you know, real estate agent that wanted me to list a house was about $390,000. So even in a depressed economic area, we're still seeing about a 10% a year rate of appreciation, which it looks like it's about the same in LA, because the difference between 146 and just a hair under 16 is about 10%.
Correct. And that's why I always tell people real estate is the best investment you could possibly make, because what else is going to appreciate at 10% and have so much utilitarian value? You use it. You can't live in your stocks, but you can live in a house. So, and yeah, we're gonna move on. All right, Sam.
So lending changes since COVID. So a lot has changed. It was very uncertain at the beginning. There were people in escrow that like the investors just pulled out just last minute right before closing. Sorry, no funds are available. It was crazy in March and April. But there is definitely more scrutiny, especially for those self-employed buyers. So I recently had a hairstylist, owner of a hair salon. You have to show your profit and loss for 2020, even for a loan size under 765, whereas before it was just the last 2 years of tax returns, assuming everything is the same this year, good to go. This year is an off year for everyone. So the underwriters are going to be looking more into all of your profit and loss statements for the current year to make sure you're on track to make what you made last year. We still are verifying employment all throughout the process, where it used to be like once or twice during the loan process. Now it's like 5 different times that we're verifying employment to make sure there's no changes. A lot of people have had to take a pay cut for a few months. If you've taken a pay cut and you're now back at where you were, or maybe you were off work and laid off for a few months and now you're back to work, you only need to wait 30 days of pay stubs to show the updated salary or that you're working again to be able to qualify for a new house. That's a really great advantage for being a W-2 or salaried employee. So you just really need a 1 month. If you've had like a gap of employment of 4 months or more, then I think they want you back at work, usually a month or 2, but it's definitely more flexible in the loan sizes under 765. If it's over 765 here in LA County for a single family, those investors are called jumbo investors. Those loans are harder to get right now. And for a while they were like completely gone, but they're back. It's just that those investors are saying like, oh, I don't really want to give you $1 million unless I can really make sure that I'm okay with you, that I know you're going to make the payment. And so those guidelines are going to be harder to comply with, lower debt ratio requirements. And all of this with the 60% of people in the US being able to qualify for a refinance and purchases being up 20% year over year, lenders are crazy busy. And so all of the banks are super behind. And if you do get into escrow and let's say you need to sell a house to buy a house, those are very hard situations at the moment because the buyer of your house may not be able to get their loan on time, which would then delay your place, which then if you're buying from somebody else who needs to buy another house, that whole ladder gets messed up. So if you are thinking of buying or getting pre-approved, just be wary, you know, have some grace. These banks are working just as fast as they can. Nobody expected all this to happen. Everybody's trying to hire, but there's only a certain amount of people in the pool to hire from. So that's what's happening in lending. The next slide I have here is what's happened with interest rates. So ever since the Fed made the announcement that they were going to lower the interest rates to 0, it's not really 0. 0 is the interbanking lending rate. But for homeowners to buy a house, you almost have free money, right? Right now, rates for loans under 765,000 are under 3%, like 2 3/4. I've even seen lower. every loan is different. There isn't a one rate fits all, one size fits all in the mortgage industry. It's all case by case. But I just put like an average number. I'm quoting a lot under 3% right now, which is crazy cheap money. And so the loan rates that you might be seeing or hearing online in under 3 are for loans under 765. If you're in the market to buy a house, maybe buy multiple units or something like that, you'll see that rates are going to be higher. People who have loans that are over in the jumbo size, that are, if their rates are at 3.5, then they shouldn't refinance. They probably won't see anything better than that right now. Fannie Mae president announced yesterday that he thinks rates are going to continue to be low in 2021 and the average rate to be 2.6. The Fed says they're not even thinking of raising rates. So this is all really good. And if you look at the last 40 years and the 5 recessions, I think we've had or so 5 to 7 recessions in those 40 years. After a recession, rates drop and home prices go up. So we'll see, what happens, how much lower they're going to go. I don't know. I mean, Japan, I think, was like at a 1% interest rate for many years. So we'll see what happens, but rates are definitely very low, and it's definitely prompting a lot of activity in the market. One more slide I stuck in here, and we might be getting close to the end. But just if you're a first-time home buyer, I listed on there is a down payment assistance program still available where you have the state help you with your down and your closing costs. There's also some other down payments required there that I put down for you, so you know that if you haven't bought a house yet and you wanted to, you could put very little down. For those of you considering second homes and investment properties, if you want to buy a second home, like I mentioned, 10% minimum down. Investment properties, a minimum down is 15%, but I always recommend 25 if you can, because that'll get you the best interest rate. And all of these loan amounts that I'm talking 765 is for a single family home. If you're looking at buying units, then those loan sizes do go up by county.
So I've got a couple of questions related to that. Are they still on the lending side doing some stated loans with a 30% down, or are there no lenders touching those right now?
There are some. I actually just heard from an old colleague a few weeks ago who's doing them. Super high credit scores. You have to be, real clean client, and you show bank statements. There's no stated, but you can show bank statements to prove your income. So you're proving the, the cash flow. And then the other bank statement loans I've heard of require like 55% down, but I think this one colleague I have would allow, I think, 10 or 15%, but you have to be super squeaky clean.
And then on the first-time home buyer, so like the house that we own currently, I'm on the mortgage. My wife's not on the mortgage. She's simply on the title for, probate purposes. So would she be able to qualify as a first-time home buyer?
No, not normally. It's the first-time home buyer programs are really just for assistance. And if you guys are married in the state of California, so she owns the property that you are occupying now. So she's not necessarily a first-time home buyer. A lot of people are like, oh, but I don't want to miss out on the first-time home buyer benefits. Well, I mean, it's not for everyone. It's not like you're really missing out. If you already have a down payment saved, you probably wouldn't use that program anyway. There's also some income limitations with it as well. So,
and FHA will still let you buy 5% down even if you're not a first-time home buyer.
You don't have to be a 5. Yeah, exactly. And you could put 5% minimum down, or use FHA if you were selling your old house or something like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
So let's go around. Just like we like to round out, and then we leave a few minutes at the end, like usually 10 minutes, which is great because we're about to do 10 minutes at the end for questions. Go around and introduce your name again, because some people came in late. And then one thing you learned, and if you came in so late, you're like, oh, geez, I didn't learn a thing. And then you can just share kind of like what interests you about real estate. So